Hi guys, my name is Matthew. I'd like to tell you a story about PowerShell, Azure, and some fun. I'd like to show you my experience with Windows Event Forwarding and provide you with building blocks so you can build it up yourself. I'll guide you through all the necessary steps that are required to deploy WEF. We will do that together. I have a prepared lab with sample data that we will work on later on. I will use some buzzwords like Azure, Log Analytics, Costa Query Language, Azure Dashboards, and Power BI to enchant you and bring you to the light side of the force. To better understand this voodoo, I will first throw some slides at you. It's not much. Who knows what Windows Event Forwarding is? Yay! Who uses this or something similar to forward logs into central location? That's great. Anyone familiar with get event? Get events and find events. Okay, a few hands. Let's start then. You will hear me saying WEF. It's a sound similar to dog barking. I'm not sure whether Windows Event Forwarding is called like that, but the analogy kind of resonates with me. What is WEF? This is a log forwarding solution built into all modern Windows systems. The service is transferring all the logs using Windows RM. So the connection is secured with Kerberos. It can operate in two modes, push or source initiated, meaning a service forwards a set of events to a central server called WEF. WEF stands for Windows Event Collector. This means no agent installed anywhere, no privileges required for that to run. Each WEF subscription that resides on a WEF server has its own ACL list that explicitly allows or denies a server to participate in a set of events. Each server checks like 60 seconds, this is configurable through GPO, to the WEF server what events, what subscription he is part of and what events he should send. Then each minion pushes the events from him to the WEF server. This is why it requires no agent anywhere. This goes by default into forwarded events log, which is a big bag of everything, and that can be confusing at first, but then that can be customized as well. There's also the pull mode, meaning collector initiated, usually set up on a small environments where the collector holds on the subscription. There's the ACL that says you connect to this machine, you grab the events. These are the credentials used and required to connect to the machines. So if you want more theory, the information can be found at MS-DOC sites. Now the story. Where it all began for me, a regular ops guy that was tasked to do something. The something was, tell me who were logged out where. This was a simple thing. We set it up. We set up some forwarding events on our DCs to move to a central console. So support will need access to the DCs. And everybody were happy. It was just a few clicks, GUI, we done. But it wasn't enough for me. I found host-based firewall presentation by Jessica Payne a few years ago. And I've learned what you can do with Windows Firewall. You can do a lot. You go watch it. It's really worth it. Following the white rabbit, I've hit an article called WEFLS. WEFLS stands for Windows Event Logging Forensic Logging Enhancement Services. Yeah, and monitoring what matters, which is now over 3 years old document, still a lot of information. This is a brilliant piece of art for fast, basic incident response with Power BI dashboard and CSV generation, which can be easily customized for your needs. You will see from where I've got the inspiration to build what I've built. So I started tinkering with that. And what I love about PowerShell is run this within minutes and hack your way up. So we did. We had a working solution over 2 years ago, but we've tried others as well. Greylog, Splunk, or Alien Vault were out of reach, usually for us. We have tried building our own ELK solution with Winglog Big Forwarder, but that requires installing agent on every box in our premise, and a lot of time to customize the dashboards and dig through that. Remember, we are ops that don't have time. We were not security team responsible for the incident response. We were just trying to get some events into our regular ops work. We also tried OMS, at least that's what it was called back then, but it required either agents on all nodes, or it pushes all the events from the log. You can specify a log, and then all the information from the log is being forwarded into Azure, which was costly back then. Then I found Windows Event Forwarding Guidance by Palantir, great company. There's a GitHub repo from them containing all the information you need and require to build your own WEF solution with pre-made subscriptions, with events that are interesting in terms of ops daily work. It was recently added by Jeremy Kaspar to WS Lab. Who knows what WS Lab is? Okay, not many of you. I highly recommend checking that. It's a library of pre-built scripts for many scenarios. It was built as S2D checks, so S2D lab for Hyper-V scenarios to test, hack, kill, crash, and destroy. But then when it grew, it began to hold different scenarios like BitLocker, VMs with BitLocker. Just try it out. Currently, there are 4 scenarios regarding events. The Palantir event forwarding guidance, part of the deployment code you will see is from that repo. Creating custom event logs, which is not trivial. It's easy, but it's not trivial. I help with that, building the XML. You can have your own log names. There's also the NSA event forwarding guidance, if you'd like to test it out, and deploying Sysman. What does WS Lab does? You just fill in a few lines of code in PowerShell, like names. It creates virtual machines with you for Active Directory and everything that's required and deploys the code, and you can just grab it and use in your production. I've seen LME surfaced recently. Didn't have time yet to play with that. And there's also the Sauron project from Microsoft. So it seems like a lot of Tolkien fans around. So here we are. Let me use Jessica's pain words here. WEF is free, also for workstations, and configure via GPO in push mode. Because it uses native EVTX format, so all the logs stored can be transferred to any station, you can read it anywhere, it doesn't require an appliance to get into that. It's quite secure thanks to Kerberos and no agent install anywhere, and it's ready for ops for you guys. Active Directory guys like me looking to track down a certain service account. We don't need to wait for the security team to approve this or to give us access to, for example, we want to hunt down a specific Active Directory account. We don't need to build a dashboard for that in Splunk or solution like that. We can set it up in minutes and just troubleshoot. There are also weak points in WEF, like one event log forwarding events for everything, and no out-of-the-box subscriptions. Once you set up WEF, like 2 clicks or 2 commands, it's empty. So this is where Palantir shines. Using their guidance building blocks, we can hack our way up and achieve different event log for different events, which speeds up the process of searching and also allows us for better storage customization because we decide where the logs are stored on how fast storage and how big the storage is. If you'd like to, they have the pre-built event logs called WETs, 1, 2, 3, up to 16. If you'd like to create your own event logs, WS Lab, and use one of those scenarios to create your own labs, it's easy. They also have the pre-compiled XML subscriptions, which contain all the necessary events you'd like to monitor or like to hunt down. And because it's PowerShell, it's easy deployment, as you will see in a moment. And so once we set it up, we just add computers to Active Directory groups. And once they hit it, after refreshing Kerberos ticket of the machine, they will just send all the events to this web server. What you can do is you can provide more web servers. They have to be the same, like mirrored ones, so then machine will send logs to both servers at once. You cannot set a minion to send different logs to different web servers. That's not possible with that, but you can have different subsets of servers sending logs to different servers. For example, Active Directory logs sending to one web server, member servers or development machine sending to another web server. This is up to you. Here's the problem with WEF. If you do not have a CM where you can forward all the precious logs, it becomes painful not only in terms of storing, because they grow fast, but also in searching. If anyone tried to search through 16 gigs of one event log, I'm with you. And also that requires a lot of RAM. Each 1 gig of event log that WEF is processing, it requires 1 gig of memory. So having 50 logs, each 4 gigs, that's a lot of memory to hold, to have it as a hunting machine. This is basically for storing logs. We will hunt it anywhere, somewhere else. Also, once we have the logs, there are people who would benefit from those as well. First line support, second line support. AD admins, Exchange admins, workstation admins that require helping in app crashes. We do not want to give access to the web server to that many people, and there's a workaround for that. We will use the following solution. We will use find events, an amazing piece of work by Przemek from his Perswin reporting solution that can query event logs, bypassing the problems that GetWin event has, like maximum 23 IDs in a search, like searching parallel through event logs, like searching many machines at the same time. Awesome stuff. Then we will use the REST API and send the logs we want, the events we want to Azure Log Analytics for storing and analyzing later on. Storing is free for 5 gigs each month, so that is a lot of data to store there, and it's dirt cheap afterwards. For my company, we're 1,200 endpoints. We assumed, and it's built like that right now, that storing all the logs we need for a year, that's a cost of 100 euros for a year. So like 10 euros per month to know what you will see in a moment. Ingestion costs a little, but you will see it's dirt cheap. And it's fast, really, really fast. Using my module called WEF Tools and the Azure Log Analytics and Power BI dashboards, we will slice and dice through the data. No user will have access to the web server. In other words, our web server will be storing our subscriptions and assign Active Directory groups for different events. We will be gathering logs there based on the subscriptions, searching through them. We will tamper a little bit with them because the event is in plain text or in XML. You have to parse it, and this is the brilliant job done by Przemek's module that gives us the XML into an object. We will like to have that in a standardized way. Then we will send it to Azure Log Analytics, and using dashboards, Azure dashboards or Power BI dashboards, slide for that. To make it happen, we will have a management workstation where we will download all the code from GitHub for Palantir. From there, we will configure the web server. Then we will create Active Directory groups, each corresponding to the subscription that the web server has, populate the groups. Then we will configure the Azure Log Analytics workspace, and then we will view in Log Analytics, Power BI, all in Kusto query language using Log Analytics. Also, we can set up monitoring and alerting for specific events. Okay, that's enough for slides. Let's have some fun. So, here we are. Let's start with the repo. Everything's on GitHub. Everything's available for you to look for. Where's my mouse? Where's my mouse? Where's my mouse? Okay, got it. So if you land on the basic page, you will see that it's based on Palantir, that it requires specific definitions built by me based on Przemek's work on his events, and also uses his module. We will have the server was deployed. We will have all the AD group created, Azure Workspace prepared. This is all semi-automated. And then we will have the examples of how the code will run. Meaning, everything in here will allow you to... There's one prerequisite right now that requires manual work, and that is creating GPO. In this Markdown document, you will see everything that's required to set up the GPO. I have one guy in the back that promised me that it will be able to import GPOs into your domain based on template domains. Once he deploys that into production, I will provide a template GPO that you can just copy, paste, and import it to your Active Directory without manual work. So that's soon to be automated as well. We will deploy the Azure Logs Analytics workspace. Also, if you'd like to make sure you can cap up to 150 megs a day, so you won't take out the 5 gigs of your storage at first. If you have a paid subscription where you pay for storage, it doesn't matter for you. It's up for your needs and considerations. We will deploy all the tools needed for the web server in a moment, and then we will have some examples how to run and what to do. One explanation: to deploy a web server, there's, oh, let me show you the code. Okay, let's start with the demo. There's the code. I have two demos, two labs. The first lab is on my machine, which is really slow. It's only a DC and a web server, an empty one. I will be deploying the web server in here from the DCs. Don't do that. As you can see, there's no scheduled tasks. There's no event subscriptions, no logs in here, additional ones. He's even asking me to set up the event collector service. And also I have a second lab, which I will show in a moment. So the log to deploy WETs. All it takes is your, enlarge it. Okay. Yeah? Yeah, trying to. Better? Okay. So as you can see, this is my test domain sitting in here. This is just a single server. One explanation, all the regions in here are labeled. So local means it will modify your local machine. The code is running right now. When there's remote, it also says where it will modify something remotely on a server, meaning WETs or Active Directory. So the code is labeled a little bit. Let's have it. Okay, trying to create a session to a collector machine. I will use invoke commands with the session, so I will have the same session. I'm setting, this is the only variables that you will have to fill in. Usually this means where your security groups will be created for the Active Directory subscriptions, also what will be the prefix for the rules, and where will be the logs stored on a server. Because this is a test machine, it's stored on the same system as OS. If you need SAT Active Directory installed on your local machine, this code will do that. Because we're working on the C, we don't need to do that. To download the zip from GitHub, we will require TLS 1.2 instead of the default 1.1. So this makes that for us. Once the code is downloaded, it copies to the server using copy item to session, unzip it locally and unzip it remotely at the same time. We unzip it locally because there's like 51 XML files that we need those names to create Active Directory groups, and we export it on the remote machine because we will import it into web server. So right now we create an Active Directory group. It probably will bail out because I pre-created that, sorry. Okay, the EOU was created. Right now, let's create Active Directory groups. We've got them. Let's move on. We enable the WET service on the collector. We right now create a custom event forwarding log. What this means is it unloads a default DLL in the system. It will error because Microsoft, I don't know, it errors, but then gets the custom DLL from Palantir and loads it in. Once the custom DLL is loaded in, if you rerun the code, it will unload the DLL properly. So no error on the second run. Exactly. What it does in this step, in here, we're gonna refresh. Because if you wouldn't do that, all the logs would go into applications and services forwarded events. Right now, we want to pre-create. It's not loaded, sorry. One last step, DC. So we import the XML files and the rules and create the subscription in this. Now once it's done, hopefully it will work. Yeah, it's done. Now we verify whether the subscriptions were created on the destination server, how many of them were, what are the names. This means everything's okay. Then we go into and create a log folder for the logs and set. Yeah, thank you. Create a folder, create a log for each of the events, set the destination for the logs to this, and set the maximum size. If you would like to get the events from the WETs from your machine, for example, you would like to view the event logs from your machine, you have to enable the firewall rule on the WET server. That's an optional. Also, this is my recommendation. It works for me. It may not work for you. I mean, you may want to add more groups. This code will query for all Active Directory servers, domain controllers, ask you to which group you would like to add those. On the test environment, let's just select everything. Those machines, 1DC, was right now added to the Active Directory group for all logs. This asks for all member servers, but you can, because I have only one machine, it bails out, and you add all machines. First, you select the groups you want to add. For example, if you have BitLocker enabled on your workstations, add all workstations to BitLocker. If you have BitLocker enabled on servers, you just filter through the outgrid view, select all the machines, all the groups you want, and then select all the machines you want to be added. As you can see, I have additional OVF machine. And these three servers, DC, which was added previously, a web server, which we are configuring, and also the OVF for a different demo, are being all added to Active Directory groups. Refreshing Kerberos ticket seems not to work on a machine. Invoking GPO update force does not work on a machine. You need to reboot the machine. So do not expect the machine to get back to the WETs before you reboot it. I hope you update and patch your machines quite frequently, so reboot shouldn't be an issue. And finally, we clean up. Once we have that, there's additional step. The WET server is running. Let me show you. The WET server is running. It will collect all the events. And if you require only that, you're good to go. We've got the subscriptions. We've got the events. For example, account lockout. Has all the IDs, 14740, to get the locked out accounts. And all the events from these machines, so all the machines from this group, will be logged into WET's authentication. What WET's authentication is, yeah, this is event view back. You need to close and open again. It takes him a while. It is like no memory at all. Right now we can see custom folders with custom event logs. This is what the custom DLL does. It creates this. If you want to have it customized, go to WS Lab. There's one scenario how to create your own custom DLL and import that in automated way into a system. So right now we have a test lab, and it does nothing except of accepting events. So to overcome the cons of the web solution, like lack of storage, we need to configure that to get to the Azure log and to send the information there and prepare the dashboard. So we have a second script that will create, let me just, without the credentials, it's the same, because I'm running as domain admin on the test lab. I will omit the other one. I have a task scheduler session right now, which will again install the module from gallery from Premec and install my module, the WEF tools. I'm a little bit cheating here. I'm still working on a solution to create a scheduled task from the code automated way that will be in memory only. We have that done through TeamCity in our environment. In here, I'm getting all the information. What you see is here is workspace ID and primary key for my Azure log. We will create a new one in a second. It will be destroyed after PS console, no issues. Get all the information, store it in a file, and create a scheduled task that will run after each startup and after 10 minutes. So it runs each 10 minutes mark and after startup. So we are sure that it will start up after machine reboot and get all the events. And you'll see the magic in a moment. And just runs the PS1 file, which has import module. This is your hash table with the cache, and I will talk about in a moment. and this is all the information required to create a task schedule. So let's have it. The modules are already installed. We have the task, we have the file. Let's check on the event log whether I'm not lying. As you can see, we have got the task with multi-triggers, so startup, and after 10 minutes, that will run the code. Okay, now let me destroy the lab, because it consumes all my memory. And we can move to the second part of the demo. Okay, so where's my mouse? Let's see what's behind the magic. So the get event from WEF, my function, it accepts one parameter called WEF definition name. If you're more interested in the details, let's talk about later. Basically, this is a wrapper for find events function from Przemek that will, just a simple JSON file that holds information, what ID, what should be the field mapping into object. I will show you in a moment. If it won't get the definition name by default, it gets all the definitions from a given location and runs them. You can provide your own definition path. For example, take my JSONs and say, I don't need that and I need an additional one. Copy into a folder, point to a location, it will run. What it does, enumerates through each definition, creates if the cache. What is cache? Basically, you can find events based on a date time mark. For example, get me all events from last day. But if you reboot the machine, the marks is kind of blurry. So I created a JSON file that has a hash table of definitions. Each definition has 3 fields. Last export time. So when did the last export to Azure Log Analytics succeeded? What was the status of last export? And when was the last runtime? Because we could have run it and did not succeed in exporting. So during the runtime, it gets the data, converts it. All data are in UTC format, so don't be misled by that, and gets only the logs from the point in time from the last export till now, and flashes to to Azure Log Analytics. So basically, this is this. We need the invocation start time, grab all the events, and invocation end time. That's it. The rest of this is whether we specified, should he log to write Azure Log, should he use export file. If no export file is used, it grabs all the information from all the logs. So as long as your logs contain data, it will flush it. This is a good thing to run at start. If you point to a cache file that does not exist, it will assume this is a fresh run, create the export file, get all the events, flush it to Azure Log Analytics, and then create a JSON with the timestamp. And if you want to get the output into a variable, for example, for yourself on the screen, you have to give the pass-through. What does the write log analytics? It gets through. Any one of you work with Azure Log Analytics? Great. Any one of you pushed custom logs to Azure Log Analytics? Okay. What it does, it requires the invocation start time, end time. It requires some GUIDs like batch, because when I get a definition, it will be like 300 events. If I would like to dig through the data, all the events from this batch get a single GUID. So I can slice and say, okay, I only need that batch. Also, each event requires a GUID. This is what happens in here. So the object that's being returned by Przemek's function find events gets additional node properties that are required by Azure Log Analytics. And that's it. All the code required to push the data is from Microsoft side. I didn't invent it. I don't get credit for that. It's just customized with these 4 lines. What does the JSON, the definition, look like? So it has fields. On the left side are the column names returned by Przemek's function. If it has a string, it tries to parse the string, and each field is populated as a separate object. On the right side, it is how it's going to look like in Azure Log Analytics, because I want to be standardized. So machine name for computers crashed will be object affected. If I will be looking for groups, it will be object affected. If I will be looking for people added to groups, it will be member name. So this is what I do in here. I rewrite the events returned from event log for easy search later on in Azure log. And this is my statement, where does the log goes, and this is from XML subscription. So if you create your custom subscription, just make sure you update this data. Also, what's possible, for example, IDs 12 and 13 are very verbose. So in the message you will get, the machine was started at day, at time, etc., which is kind of fuzzy if you want to slice the data for. So I create a rewrite, override, meaning if there is an event ID 12, write into event action field a simple string system start. Then I can slice and say, tell me where all the system started, instead of getting all the data and pass the string in later on. So this is what it does. Custom query language, also some samples, what you can do with log, how you can filter that, what events I'm interested in, sort by date, extend, and project. Project means select. If any one of you work with SQL, this is very, very similar language. Also with docs, there are cheat sheets, SQL in this, and custom query language in this. With these queries, you can get all the Active Directory group changes that are being pushed into Azure. Let's see that then. My lab, sorry. My lab is running remotely. It consists of Wayata router and 3 sites. In each site, I have Active Directory domain controller and the DHCP server. The primary site has 2 DCs. I also have a file server, web server, WEF for a different demo, and management server. So this is my test lab that was feeding the Active Directory and the Azure log for 2 weeks past with the events, so we can slice through that. What was I supposed to? This is done, this is done, this is done, this is done. Okay. What does it look like on the destinations lab then? So as you can see, I have all my definitions. As before, 9 servers reporting to the web server, event logs being populated and created. I have my logs being filled in. I have my task scheduler, just the same situation as what we deployed a moment ago. What does it look like in Azure then? And where's the magic? Because right now we see no magic. I need to speed it up a little bit. Okay, so basic, anything you get, identifier in the field will be the name of the log that you will create in here. Azure will create the CL postfix for you. This means there's a custom log called wet logs. We can just run it, and you will see that I got 700 records in past less than a second. This is what I was calling when I said it was fast. But we have events that are not quite readable for us. So I've got all the search from the file I showed you just before in here. So what happens if we declare a variable, tell them filter all for past 7 days, past 7 days, and we get this. There was an Active Directory group changes on the group all employees done by administrator. This member was added. This is the sample run. This returned 300 records in 200 milliseconds for us to search. There is a little delay. If you create the workspace, before the logs are filled in, it's like 30 minutes at first. Then when you send the logs, before you see them in Azure, it takes like 2-3 minutes. As I said, this is not a CM solution. This is a troubleshooting environment for your Active Directory. So even for your support, if they have a delay like 5 or 10 minutes because the tasks runs every 10 minutes, it's not an issue. If you need CM, buy a CM. This is not that. Or Azure Sentinel, or some stuff anyway. So you've got a lot of events here you can chew on. Once the the query was run, you can create a new alert rule for that. That is paid, unfortunately, 150 for alert, meaning not for each invocation of the alert, but you pay monthly $1, $1.50 for this alert to run. So it may start 300 times, you will pay 150 a month to being notified about something. Okay, I need to speed up, so let's go through. Azure Monitor sample. You can also get, the Azure Monitor can get the information into Teams. Right now, the webhook for Teams is not working because it requires specified JSON, which I need to chew on. But you can get a link to email Teams, and instead, Azure Monitor will email Teams something happened. How does it look like? Will it log me? So I've got the words alert channel, and I'm being notified that the group was created and somebody cleared logs, security logs on a server that day. My other presentation does a similar thing for PGX or WEF. As you can see, there are more events in here. Apparently, my sample demo is not being overtaken by anyone. Move on. Azure dashboards. If you like to fiddle in the Azure dashboards, you can create your own. Just get the query from the file. In the module, there's also, in the repository, there's also the JSON required for you to import that. And you can see there were 82 password changes in the last time. The person changing the password, resetting the password, meaning someone reset the password, it wasn't user changing the password, was administrator, he's to blame, and he did all the changes. We can slice and dice, for example, last 4 hours. And there were less. My sample lab was not running for past 7 days. That is why you see the number is the same. Speed up, speed up, speed up. How does that cost? My lab is running for 3 weeks right now. This is the forecast till the end of the week. I fed like 10,000 events into the Azure Log Analytics right now. Mainly the increase in cost in here is because I provided the Azure Monitor. This is what increased the cost. As I said, for our production environment, this forecast for 100 euros a year, 1,200 endpoints, 1,200 endpoint servers, workstations, because we gather all the data from all the workstations, no exceptions. That's not much. That's not even a slight chance you will pay for CM. But that's not all. Let's get something better. I've created a dashboard in Power BI, as I promised, that because your average support, your average admin team does not have time or effort to learn the query language to be effective in searching, in threat hunting, or in getting events. So there's the dashboard created. On the GitHub repo, you will find the information how to inject your own workspace. Basically, edit queries, and once you have the workspace, sorry, I need to refresh. Because I cleared it, it requires my credentials to get to the Azure. You can publish the report later on into Power BI dashboards on the Azure, but that will refresh once a day. That's good for reporting for your management, not for you. So I'm using organizational account. I'm logging in and saying everything that will be shooting at everything that will be shooting at API should use these credentials. It requires 2-factor for me, because why not? I'm signed in, I connect. You see 64 events. The last time it was generated was 31st of May. I didn't refresh the table. It did refresh right now, it has 1,600. So what can we do with that? We can slice and dice. This table consists of all the elements, all the events that we have. We can switch into user events and, for example, say we want only information about users created. We want only about the event Skywalker that was created by whom and when. We can clear that. We can see on which DCs the actions were created, from which DCs the logs are in. We can also get the group events. For example, tell me everything that happened to Admiral Akbar. Well, there were 7 events about that, all done by administrator. He was added and removed from groups, like this. What also you get with the Palantir's guidance and this, for a junior staff, they don't know the IDs. They don't need to. They just have an event action, which is a string, which is a text, and they can chew on that. For you, admins, I assume everybody knows that 4756 is member was added to a security-enabled group. You saw 51 subscriptions. That's a hell lot of information. WEF has a sea of information. And also the log events in here. Power BI, the limitation. Azure Log Analytics will return you 10,000 events, no more, at the GUI. If you use Power BI, it will return 500,000 events. By default, this Power BI dashboard is set for 7 last days. So you won't be flooded with all the events because it's for recent troubleshooting, not for querying. Okay, let's get back to the presentation. Fun fact, I've deployed that 3 times in production with no issues. When I was created a test lab for the code to be tested, no issues. When I created the demo lab you saw before, all the VMs, YATA, it broke on me 3 times in a row with the same situation. Meaning, I created the GPO, I created all entries inside, the DECs were rebooted, the GP result said, yes, I have that GPO, it's applied on me, but the events were written into DECs event logs for 5 minutes, and then no, not a 0. No events about users, computers, groups, crashes, yeah. DCs, logging, nothing. When I run the audit poll get category on the DCs, it returned no auditing. But obviously GPO was working. The fix is from Microsoft employee spat from 2011 to get into your sysvol and remove the CSV file, or remove all the entries in the CSV file. Then the GPO gets cleared, and you just configure that again, and then it works. No idea why. Something fixes that. That's good. So let's wrap it up. Collect your events, because it's free. You can set it up in like 5 minutes. As you saw, you just require a simple Windows 2016, 2019 machine to get the web server running. With Palantir's guidance, you don't need to figure out what to monitor at first. Once you get better at that, you create your own subscriptions, which are XML files, which you can store in GitHub repo, which you will have changes. Anybody changes the XML subscription? Push to GitHub, then to the web server. Recreate subscriptions because they do not clear the logs, and you have got the change management for your web subscription. No more GUI. Deploy and run with PowerShell, which is free because it uses WEF tools, which are free, and find events, which are also free. So not only get the events into your subscription, into your server, but also use that in a secure way, or more secure way. Instead of giving 30, 40 people access to your web server, just point them to the log analytics, and they will use their credentials, admin credentials, with 2-factor authentication to chew who created which account. It saves a lot of time in the troubleshooting. And as I said, store and analyze in Azure, which is free or chip free. If you compare that, if I would like to have information in my domain for 1 year, because right now in my production environment we keep logs in Azure for 1 year, I would have to have enormous storage to store the logs, especially for authentication. We get a lot of authentication from our build servers, GitHub servers, Git servers running on premises. So storing that on premises, first, someone can tamper with the data, someone can get to the server, can delete the data. It's really hard to flush the data in log analytics. You require really, really high permissions to clear the log analytics. So yes, it runs every 10 minutes. In my environment, because it gets all the definitions. If you want to specific, I want log security to be run every 30 seconds, not a problem. To run that definition, if you'll be interested, I have all the demo in here. We can go after each example. I want to quickly, briefly show. Give me 30 seconds. What are the examples? The sample run. What you can do with that? you can get the definition list. Shoot. I was supposed to be running from here. So a sample run. You can get the list of the definitions which are currently in the module. This is what you need to put into as an input file, or leave it empty and all the definitions will be checked. To get the events, this is from Przemek's module. I didn't invent it. It gets the... Sorry. Got it. So it will go back one day till the noon. So right now it's like 11:45. It will go back yesterday, and from the noon, from the start of the day, it will get all the events from yesterday and from today till now on. Then it will use, it won't use cache. It will verbose all the information, and the object will be passed through. Because there is a lot of definitions in here, and the machine is slacky, I will just run a subset of that. Let it run in the background. This time it doesn't use the cache file as well, so it runs everything from the very beginning. As you can see, the environment was set, the lab was set on 6th of April, and it gets all the events, sorry, 1+ day, my bad. It gets all the events from yesterday and from today till the end of the day. It gets to the specific log on the web server and tries to get all the events, then pass it, let it run. Also, we can check what's in the cache because it's running. What does the cache look like? A simple JSON file. I'm afraid of JSON after Lee's presentation right now. But it's a simple JSON that has all the definitions, what was the last export, last runtime, and last success. This is UTC time, so the next runtime we specify a cache, it will grab the data and use that to get only the events. The last success export time is the end invocation. So right the moment after the find events command, it takes milliseconds. As I said, this is not CM. This is a troubleshooting action. We should get all the events. Should. If something hits milliseconds between the time the events finished grabbing the information from the logs and I got the invocation end time, somebody knows how to fix that. I tried looking at the streamer from WEF, but that's over my head right now. So I don't know how to import the streamer function from WEF into this solution. Anyway, let it finish. Okay, we've got our hash table. We can easily get that into outgrid. It will get all the events, push into outgrid, which we can also chew. This command can be run from your workstation, so you don't have to wait for the Azure Log Analytics to kick in. You can just point at web server with the firewall rule and proper permissions, of course, and tell me everything you know about Dart Mal. Who reset his account? When? What's the ID of the user? When did it happen? What's the record ID is the ID of the event log, in the event log of the event. So having this, you can point at the event log and say, give me anything about record ID 615-274 and check it in XML. Okay, back and back. Because I had to rebuild the environment 3 times, glad I had PowerShell scripts, 18 of them that set up the domain. I can set up a new, fresh company within 30 minutes, right now, with populated Active Directory groups, GPOs, etc. And one lost, yeah, I know. No. So yeah. Slides and demo are available at the GitHub right now. They will be available. They will be available at the PSConf repo today in the afternoon. I have a second session, so after that session, all that will be passed in. Use the conference app to vote, and this is me. I hope you liked it. Thank you for joining me here.